Foreign direct investment driving development. Sustainable growth through knowledge transfer. Technology as a solution. Innovation as a way forward. Over 70 ministers, 140 countries, over 500 exhibitors, 8,000 square meters of exhibition, 15,000 businessmen and investors. The annual investment meeting, Sustainable Development through FDI-induced innovation and technology transfer.
There are different things or the specialty that they have that school does not have. We need to be aware of this, and we need to build a relationship with that government education center, so we make sure we really understand if they come to Dubai, what things we need to accommodate in our regulation, what things they need to accommodate in their own setup and regulation. So if we have this kind of sharing knowledge, it will be easier for schools to establish. And we've seen that. There are a lot of private schools which are based in the UK, they are non-profit, independent schools. They want to come in Dubai, but they have some kind of, I won't say restriction, but this is the way they're set up in the UK. There are things we need to accommodate, and there are things they need to accommodate in terms of mandatory subject, things that they need to consider when they are registering their students. So I think it's more the understanding of each other. And I think that was in place in a lot of sectors. That's why those sectors expand really successfully than others. So I think the same dialogue needs to be.
Thank you. Is there another panel member who would like to add at this stage?
I can second that. Actually, I think the critical question in my conversations with various people in the government, in the private sector, and among other educators is that, what does the government need to do? My question is, when people want to come and invest, if the goal is to make money, I would say go invest in real estate, okay? That should not be the primary goal, it's an incidental goal. So, we are building a country, right? And we are saying that investing in education creates an ecosystem, potential employees, and future leaders, right? So that should be the approach. And I second your viewpoint that it's a whole new system, it's a whole new century. So you have to bring what your needs are. I can speak from NY Abu Dhabi's point of view. We came in with our own set of expectations and requirements, sat down across the table with the leadership, and they said what would work for them, and we came to an agreement as what needs to be done, and that's what we executed. And I think that's the way it should be. Like I pointed out, 45% of the world GDP is going to turn over, right? So you can't do the same old thing again, right? Even the US cannot do the same old thing, because if half the world GDP comes from 7 new growth economies, the US has to, dance. The elephant has to dance faster and it's very difficult than here. It's easier to do it here. So it's actually a great opportunity for investors to come and invest in this.
Excellent, thank you. If I may just add one personal reflection on this, I've done some work with people who want to invest in schools and taking, let's say, a cold business approach. Investment is a very education is a very long-term investment, both for the parents and for the school operators. And both parties, the parents and the school operators, they want transparency and stability about the fee environment. And I think Dubai provides a good example here, that it's very clear for the short term and the long run how and to what extent you are able to charge certain fees or raise your fees. And from an investor perspective, that is really critical.
I think also from another perspective, what really governments can do really proactively approach companies from industry of high technological impact, even if they're not saying we're expanding yet. Just start a discussion and create maybe a case study with them together, and then get out a tender which is tailored to their needs. So really proactively looking for those opportunities, maybe sometimes creating them for the companies, because it's important for you to develop the skill base, because this industry is in your strategy.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Thank you, Chair. My name is John. I'm from South Africa, from a provincial government in one of the provinces.
The question by saying, How do we make sure that the investment that goes into education is actually the education that the country needs? That topic, okay. Who has a contribution?
Oh, I can start. Just as Ramesh was saying, the U.S. can't do the same thing it used to do, and the focus in the U.S. has been on higher education, four-year colleges, or graduate degrees. They're becoming, they used to be the gold standard for education. But as you know, the focus has become on community colleges, because the two-year degree that gives you an opportunity to learn a skill, learn a trade. This is what the American economy and the global economy need right now. So I think that there is this thought process that's going on about what the global economy actually needs and how to feed that back into the system, not only of higher education, but primary education like you were talking about. So it's not just at the end of it, because we can't do much as professors. We can't do much at the end of this cycle. We have to have the inputs at the very beginning. But certainly I think there's a focus on that middle part that has to do with vocational education. And I've seen this everywhere I've been. So, Russia, when I lived in Russia, the same was true there. Nigeria, same was true. There was this high goal to reach called higher education, graduate degrees, PhDs, and this is what everybody was aiming for. And that's not what the economy needed. And actually the same was true in Rwanda. So they barely had a high school graduate in the country, and they were talking about building these MITs sitting in Rwanda, and it was just unrealistic. There had to be something in the middle. And I think exploiting that middle is what all countries are going to have to do.
If I look at short-term education, training programs in companies, so the government could support companies in giving tax deduction if the company puts in place a training program. Like this, in a short term, you can adjust really quickly the needs which is on the market. Or you employ a consultant who would then predict for you, okay, what are FDI flows going and what will be the need in the country, what kind of education will you be needing?
I think there is a need to on daily basis to interact and coordinate with private companies in order to create a self-sustainable model. Because companies need a short-term return, and educational is a long-term return. So there is a need of coordination. It's critical, because otherwise it doesn't work.
Completely agree.
Other thoughts? Yeah.
I agree with what's been mentioned by the panel member, and maybe adding to that, it's not the role of only private sectors, nor just the role of the government, it's the community, it's the school. And maybe one of the examples we're trying to inject in schools. We know in 2020 that there will be Expo in Dubai. And internationally, a lot of students actually contribute to the Expo 2020. They are the volunteers. Do we see that number of volunteers happening in Dubai or in the UAE? So we're trying to push the schools to actually attract students to volunteering work so they are ready for 2020. And the new schools that wants to apply and come to Dubai, one of the things we're trying to ask, how can you create innovation in the school? And it's not only by ICT, it's by other opportunities. We're trying to ask them, within your plan for opening a school in Dubai, how will you push entrepreneurship skills in the school? And within the inspection framework, we're looking at assessing that. So on the school level, we're trying to push that from that end, but I still think there are a lot of road for research, a lot of road for the universities and the communities to actually come together and discuss and come up with a unified language of how tomorrow's students should look like so they can serve the economy in a better form.
Thank you. You have something to add, or be as you wish?
You are the moderator.
Please share your brief thoughts if you wish.
The great question. We struggle with it actually every day at the New York University in Abu Dhabi. But I don't think it's an impossible problem. I'm a big fan of community colleges. I think there's a whole new paradigm that education institutions have to embrace. Yes, there is a real role for Harvards and MITs and so on. But that's not the only solution. It's a solution. So we need to have more two-year colleges and all that very high quality. That's important. Secondly, I'll say this. It's going to happen here. So for investors, you want to get in the game now or later. I think it's better to get in the game now because there are a lot of active, people, looking into the process. One, people about capacity. I think there is capacity here. It's just a matter of recalibrating how we tap into that capacity. I look at it as three sources for getting that capacity. One, the region is rich with families who are actually business people. So the second and third generation of the people, the younger people who are Western educated, they really are, have the skills to drive change. Okay. Second, in Abu Dhabi at least, I know 80% of the population is expats. So there are a lot of expats here who are they have capacity. We can use them to initiate change. Thirdly, in the region, because of the political issues and all that, there are a lot of countries people are displaced, right? Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Syria, and so on. They embrace risk.
Another good example for me is Singapore. Singapore is, for me, along with the UAE, is the way to follow, because they incorporate FDI somehow in the educational process, in the skill development process. And this is very important because they end up having a very flexible system that helps very much what you were mentioning, the vocational training, that helps companies to incorporate people with the right training and helps companies to promote some type of education to the local people. That it's very important for them. So Singapore is for me the way to follow.
In the UAE, I think we're having a couple of opportunities of like existing providers, but they are all public providers, federal, maybe limited to specific communities or specific individuals. I think definitely there is a gap into the vocational education in the UAE where there is an opportunity for investment and for people to get involved. Some of it related to education, so it's a teaching qualification. Others are related to the other sectors. So I think there is an opportunity there.
I'll resist from offering an example, but I'll tell you one thing that's happening in the education system, which I think is very relevant to that. Even in the universities and also in high schools now, more and more, I think, what people are beginning to realize is that education is not through lectures alone, it's project and experiential based. So in the part of the curriculum, there's a lot of experiential based education. That means vocational. People do learn by doing things, by building things. That's happening and that's really showing a lot of success. We have implemented it in NYU Abu Dhabi also. And I think that's the big change. Okay. So people, when they come out with that education, they can quickly get into the job market and start delivering things. So the last thing that I would like to say is that the other thing that the universities are beginning to look at is that in this century, because of what's called globalization, that means that your job, when students graduate, when the educational system puts out graduates into the world, it's unlike in the 20th century where they only had the competence in the field, in the chosen field of study. Because they have to be mobile and they are connected, they need to have two other competencies. One, cultural competency. In the globalized world, you need to have a cultural competency to be successful. The third thing is social accountability. You need to have a sense of social responsibilities and, in order to be successful in the world, because you build products and services for the world now, right? Not just for your localized. So you need three levels of competencies, and I think the educational systems have to focus on giving the students this, and then you top it off on a platform of innovation. I think that's a win-win, and I think that can happen in Abu Dhabi, UAE for that matter.
Excellent, thank you very much. Unfortunately, it is now 10 o'clock and we have to conclude our session. I'd like to thank you very much for your participation. It's been very productive, and of course I'd like to thank our panel members very much for the great contributions. Thank you.